Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest Joe Ryan. Joe has been on a lifelong journey of overcoming trauma, shame, and the demons that plague him from his childhood. He turned his mission outward, helping other people to conquer their traumatic past. Through his podcast, It's Not You, It's Your Trauma, and one-on-one coaching. Joe is paving the way for people to heal. He is bearing his soul publicly to extend a hand to people who might feel stuck or frozen in their healing journeys. There are coaches out there who strive to do the same, but what sets Joe apart is that his voice embodies such compassion and warmth. When you hear it, it permits you to feel whatever you need to feel to progress on your emotional journey. All right, welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And this show is based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this year, we have been hit globally with just about every situation you can imagine. So I like to start off the show by asking you, if you have had a time in your life or your business where you hit a tough situation and how you personally got back on track.
Yeah, I had a very successful accessory business for gadgets. I don't really want to mention the brand name, but I was doing really well and kind of on top of the world. And then the recession kicked in, gas went up to $5 a gallon, and the maker of the device opened up at the mall, and I went from 2.5 million in sales one year to 400,000 the next. And with all the overhead, it was just too much to bear. I had to close up shop. And it was just a downward spiral from there. See, for me, I was always chasing something. I was running away from the demons, the bad body reactions, and I was chasing something to give me some kind of wholeness. When I started to look for what the wholeness was in me, where I was fractured, that's when the healing started. And it's not about chasing, it's about being. And the more that you can be and the more that you can own who you are, you will find the path you're supposed to be on, even if it's not the one you thought you were going to have.
Right. Yes. And that's the first formula in my book, the Boots formula, Boots. The B is for being. In all I'm doing, it's who I'm being. It's how I'm showing up, whether I'm cleaning my house, doing a job I don't even like for a minute, helping family and friends, whatever I'm doing, it's who I'm being and how I'm showing up. And that mantra was something that came to me when I lost my house in a house fire and lost everything in 2017. My car got lost, my cat died in the fire, everything happened at once. And I was like, I got demoted got demoted really fast. And I was like, what just happened? And to get back on track, I needed to hold on to those kind of realities. It's not about what you have or don't have or what your business is or not doing this year. It's about who you're being and how you're showing up that's going to really make a difference.
Right. I mean, if you strip everything away from outside of you that made you who you were, when that's gone, you don't know who you are anymore. So being appreciative of the fact that you're actually breathing and you have people around you and you can move forward. It's that getting stuck that people have so much trouble with, because it's like water dripping on a rock. Over time, we have acquired and built up this life. And when it goes away in a snap of a finger, it is just shock. It's the rug's pulled out from under you and you're starting at scratch. And as an adult, you need to be at a certain point to survive. It's not like you're a kid and you work your way up to this point. You are just starting over as an adult. And when you start, we're in a comparative world. So you start looking at somebody else's yard and theirs looks really nice, and you're looking at yours with just ashes and burnt wood. It's a long road back.
Yes, yes. And the insurance does not pay much. They just pay off what you owe. Really.
Right.
You get
I've
out
been paying. I've been paying into this for years. Isn't it time I get something back? Oh, no, sorry.
So, yes, that's so true. And, one of the things I did want to share about that I did not know back then, and I'm kind of the unofficial sponsor for the 211. I don't know if you've heard of 211, but 211 is something, if you're listening in, this is really important, whether it's for yourself or loved one, maybe you have employees, this is really important to post. If you Google 211 and your state or province in Canada, you will get your resources for your state. So that's food banks, that's help with rental assistance, mortgage assistance, it's help with finding a job, all kinds of mental health resources, all listed there, help for veterans. So it's all in one location now. I didn't even know about that. Could have maybe helped me. So, so that's something that maybe you've never had to look for a resource like that to kind of get back on your feet. And that's okay. It is okay to ask for help when you need it. And it's really great to have that resource to offer a family friend or loved one that's really struggling at a tough situation where maybe they need food on the table today, or they have somebody that's really having a mental health issue with, now we have stay-at-home orders again in certain places and businesses going out that were in business for 35 plus years and now they're gone. And so, there's a lot going on out there. So if you can share that or keep that in mind to share with somebody, I think about, a rabbi or a pastor, they help their whole congregation, their whole group of people. They don't do everything for everyone, but they always had those resources, and they'd say, okay, here's this, help this, and here's that number. And but this is something now that they've created that's available for everyone. And the problem is nobody knows about it. I think I've served half the people have never heard of this, and it's so great. You just Google it and you'll see it. And so it can help a lot of people. And it's those little steps that can make a difference. Somebody needs to this is help with addictions. They'll give you resources to get you help with addictions. And then you can get into a program. You can work with Joe. You can work with me. You can work with different people, but you might need something that's really important now to get you to that first level, to get to ground zero, to start to build.
It's really difficult to ask for help. You have to go through your pride and your ego and humble yourself. And, the whole growth and moving forward and becoming unstuck is getting into that vulnerability of actually being able to ask for help without feeling shame. And I guess, with everything that's going on now, you would hope that people would get to the point where if they are struggling, they're going to reach out. I mean, you couldn't even imagine this ever happened, but the whole world is kind of in the same headspace, so to speak, because we're all facing the same thing at the same time. I don't think that's ever happened that I could think of. And if at this point, we need to be reaching out. You need to be checking in on people who live alone. Now, I live by myself 16 hours a day. I wake up and I'm like, how do I kill the next 16 hours? If you don't have that lifeline of people, because humans just our native instinct is to connect. And what's going on now is we are disconnecting, and addiction and alcoholism has gone through the roof in the past year. So keep reaching out and keep checking on people that you know and you care about.
Yes, it's very true. And this year alone, I have 6 children, 3 I adopted, 3 that are my own, that they're all grown now, and 5 children that I've known that are in their 20s have passed away from either drug abuse or suicide. 3 suicides in a year. And they're kids that my kids knew that hung out at my home when they were growing up, that they went to private schools. They, they
Right.
had the best, but they just had things going on, and this year was a lot for
It
them.
is a lot. And, you learn that how difficult it is to sit with yourself for long periods of time.
Mhm.
Social interaction is huge. There is so much suicide going on right now. It is so hard to sit contained and just, you kind of feel like a caged animal. You feel like you're within an emotional prison, and not being able to interact and not being able to connect. That loneliness and that sadness kicks in, and the wheels start spinning in your head, and it could be just a spiral. So it goes back to, again, asking and reaching out for help when you need it. People find that so difficult. We live in a society where, needing help is looked on so negatively that people fear it, and the end result is just horrific at times.
Right. And I think the other thing that I found that's very helpful is to start calling all your friends, texting, emailing, whatever you can do to connect whenever you feel down or tempted to get back into an addiction or whatever it is that you're struggling with. Connect with people in a way that's of service, giving back from a heart space, because when you're in a space of giving, it's kind of hard to be in depression at the same time. And all of a sudden, like, I mean, honestly, for me, I've had that at the beginning of the year when we were locked in the house for 3 months and we couldn't even leave where the state we were in. And it was like, okay, I'm going to call people today. And I would just, I would message people, text people, and then I'd be on the phone. And the next thing you know, I was happy. And they were like, I was lonely too. And I was going through it. And we would start connecting that way. So that's another way to really, you get out of your own head and into your heart again. And it really has helped.
It's too easy to get comfortable isolating after a certain
Mhm.
amount of time. And I think when you cross that line, it's hard to go back the other way.
Yeah.
I got my son's hates me right now because I FaceTime him every day. And the first thing I say is, I'm ridiculously bored. He's like, I got it. I've been getting the same message for 2 weeks, but it's just a fun way to interact instead of sitting here. Like, I don't want to say in my head, I don't want to bother him. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's, reach out, take the chance. Don't sit in your own sadness and don't stew in your own head, because that just will spiral at times.
Right. That it really does make a difference. Now, Joe, I'd love to hear more about some of what you're doing to work with people, how you work with people, and what that process looks like. If someone's interested to get started in that, what would that look like?
Most of the people find me through the podcast, and then I have them, send me an email, and then we'll do a Zoom, and we'll just see if it's a right fit. Not everybody, every coach or every therapist is going to be a right fit for each person. And so we do about 15, 20-minute call, and based on how they feel, they'll either continue or not. And they go to the website, they'll schedule times that they want to, that they're available, and we do it over Zoom mostly, or FaceTime. And especially now with the pandemic, people are completely isolated. I'm dealing with people in Australia, UK, just all over the world, Canada. I'm in New York, so it's kind of interesting hearing other people's stories about the pandemic in other countries. And I think now business, I put a limit on how many people I take on, because there is a burnout factor when you're coaching people through trauma. So I try to keep it limited so that I'm sharp on my skills and I don't get burnt out. But I think now it's needed more than ever. I'm starting to build up a slight waiting list. I think people are they need to reach out. They need to connect. And I think they feel like they need to connect on a deeper level than just idle chit chat or small talk.
Right. Yes. And that sounds wonderful. That's a good thing to do, and it's important to have. I know that this year also, one of the things that happened in our family is my youngest son did pass away of Wolff Parkinson White syndrome, which is a heart condition.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
He passed away December 2019, and it was really hard on us. My youngest daughter came home because they were like best friends. And she said, I need to move in with you again and just
Yeah.
take a minute, and so I've enjoyed having her home and all that, but we've had to go through this whole healing process, and that was a big thing. And we thought, wow, when I had everybody together, that's the one thing my daughter says was, if ever there was a year that we needed a universal pause,
Yeah.
it was this year. And so there's a gift in everything. For us, it was that family time. We wanted to keep going. We're a type A family. We do a lot. We're all
Yeah.
work and go to college and dorms, and the colleges are closed. And so now people are home with, doing school online. And so it's different. I think it's harder for those of us that were out a lot. And
It definitely is. Sitting when you don't have your outlets. That's what I found most about this experience is I know what my outlets are. I go and do them when I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin and I need to like be social and get out there. It's just easy. I get on the train and I'm done. Now it's you just kind of looking out your window going, well, I got nowhere to go and nothing to do, so I guess I'm going to have to sit with this a while. And the phone calls get interesting because it's like, how much am I really reporting on at this point? I call my buddy up and I'm like, listen, I made it from the bed to the couch to the kitchen, the kitchen to the bedroom. I'll call you in a week with the same report. There's really not much going on to have the conversation. So it is a lot of time sitting with yourself and with your feelings. And I've tried to make the best use out of that because I've never really had to sit this long. I like to keep moving. I like to keep, I like to keep just one step ahead of my nervous system. You know what I mean? And now it's like the brakes are put on and you have to sit with it. So that for me, that's the silver lining for me, is that I'm actually getting to know myself on a level that I would not have been able to if all of this wasn't going on, because you're sitting there and I'm thinking I would do the same thing every couple of weeks. I'm like, yeah, I'll be back to normal soon. And then a couple of weeks go by and that sense of reality just slaps me in the face. And I'm like, no, this is a long haul. You better get used to being alone and being isolated. So you can fight it or you can embrace it and try to work through it.
Yes. I mean, for me, this radio show and then all the courses I teach and working with other people, I do a whole bunch of free courses with women in shelters and different things as well. And it's really helped me. Like, it's blessing me as much as I'm helping other people. It blesses me with connection. And, with that social connection, because I'm very social. And so for me, it's like, okay, that's what I needed.
And when I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say, when you're helping people on when you're giving and you're helping, it's that emotional level. There's that connection, underneath where it's like a human connection. So you have the social connection with other people, but when you're giving back and you're helping, there's a whole undercurrent that just fills you with this great energy and lifts you up. It is so important. And that's the scary part now, is everybody's so isolated and that connection's broken. And it's just causing a lot of, sadness and depression and addiction.
Yes. And I'd love to hear maybe a typical day. Like, do you do meditation, exercise? How do you work in all those things to help you with your mindset as you've figured out how to get from a rock bottom back on track? What tools did you use? And what does your typical day look like as far as those things go?
Well, when I hit bottom, showering and making coffee was, a 3-day event. I would just sit there and, I didn't have the energy for it. So I would just slowly start adding one thing on here, one thing there. And, I was never a big exercise guy, but I started walking and then I started hiking and then I started biking. So right now it's cold here in New York, so biking is really not an option. But I got up to biking 60 miles a week in the city. That became kind of my meditation. I would spread out a blanket in Central Park and I would actually meditate there. Being out in nature, trails, lakes, hikes, and biking, I find nature and exercise just so freeing and so clearing in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally. But it was hard. I mean, I was a guy that didn't exercise at all. I was a workaholic, 16 hours a day. I was eating Krispy Kremes and drinking coffee and Coke around the clock. Like, it's just, I was in bad shape physically. So it was weaning off of just bad stuff going into my body and starting to slowly put better stuff in, and getting off the couch and start moving a little, to the point where I don't really want to sit around anymore. And that was most of my life, was kind of like a little, on my downtime, it was just couch potato. Now it's get up and go, but it's a slow process. If I was to sit here and say, I want to be in shape and I want to be running this much, and I can't really make it around the block without getting winded, I'm not going to get off the couch.
Mm-hmm.
Be excited and be happy, and, give yourself some credit for actually lacing up the shoes, getting out there. And even if it's a half a block, and just keep doing that a couple of days a week, you will build on it. Everything is just a slow process. You will get there. It's relearning and remapping your brain to learn what the new you, it will enjoy, because the old me wasn't really happy. So I don't want to go back to those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's one thing. There's a spiritual energetic chiropractor. He works with Tony Robbins. His name is Donnie Epstein, and I've gone to all his programs, and he says that sometimes when things fall apart, they reorganize to something even better. And they needed to really get us on track. And I really feel like as a world, we're reorganizing, hopefully, to something much better. And it's painful whenever, the other thing Donnie says a lot is, it's painful when you're not on track, and you will keep getting roadblocks. You will keep getting pain because you're not on your purpose and your path until you do that reorganizing. And that's really a painful thing to have to do. But once you do it, you have that peace.
It is. It's an inward process. So I like to call it original pain. What the abuse and trauma that happened causes scars and pain. And, if it happens when you're young, you don't know how to process it, mm-hmm. or self-soothe or emotionally deal with it. So we kind of cut it off from ourselves and we push it down and bury it. And that's the coping skill that we learn going through life, is we keep burying it. So within us, we are completely overrun with all these emotions that we've never dealt with. So there's no room for anything new. You put a feather on me, I'm going to collapse because I have no more room. Mm-hmm. So if we start to go in and remap and reorganize and start to process the pain and the hurt and the anxiety and the feelings, it's a grieving process. You feel that original pain, you grieve the sadness, and then you release it. And then you're just emotionally 1,000 pounds lighter when things do come up in your path. As they come up, you can process them easily, because you've learned that I don't have to bury this, mm-hmm. and pretend it's not there. I can actually work through it, have an understanding of it, and make myself okay with what had happened. And now I have even more coping skills going forward.
Yes. And I think that for my family and I, like I had mentioned, losing my son this year, my daughter's studying psychology. So we both did a lot of work in studying psychology and this and that together even. And that really helped us, because one of the things I was like, everybody has permission to scream, to yell, to cry, to grieve. I'm paying for everybody to get grief counseling as much as you need. That means this December, when we started having, okay, it's the anniversary date. Oh, this is hard. Call the grief counselor again.
Right.
Need to. And it was that. Yes, that doesn't mean we're stuck in it all the time, but we have that time where, as a family or individually, or if you need to wake me up at 3 a.m. because you just need to cry and talk, we're going to do that. And we did a lot of that this year. And I know that that's really helped. It doesn't mean that it goes away. You learn to live with a loss like that. It doesn't ever go away, especially as a parent, but it's something that, if you keep it inside, that's when you start getting ill. You get, sickness, physical sickness. You're not, like you said, your CPU, if your computer is so full, you can't process information anymore.
Right.
And then one little thing happens and it's over. You can't deal. I mean, imagine we did the funeral in January because of the holidays. And then a few months later, we're waking up and COVID hit. And we were like, are you serious? Are you serious? It's a global pandemic? Wait a minute. We're just like starting to like crawl again. And so we had, but because we did a lot of that emotional, like we gave ourselves permission to feel. And
Right.
society's like, okay, you've grieved for like a month, you should be good.
Right. Get back to work, start feeding the system, paying your taxes, all of that. No, I still need to grieve and heal, but there's no leeway there. If you don't grieve, it's energy. Emotions is what emotions are. If you just bury them, all that energy is in there. You're spending so much time and effort keeping them stuffed down. I can't agree more. You have to allow yourself to feel. See, we will schedule dinners, we will schedule nights out, we will schedule good times and parties, but we never schedule time to feel bad.
Right.
That was part of my process. My boss would be like, "What are you doing Tuesday night?" I'm like, "My kids are going back to their moms." They said, "It is my night to feel horrible. I need to process whatever had happened this week, because if I don't make time for it, I'm never going to get to it." So I would schedule once a week, every Tuesday night, to sit, throw the phone in a drawer, and lay in bed and just allow whatever I was feeling to come up. And after doing that for a year and a half, the process got easier. I gave myself permission to feel like crap at least one day a week, instead of feeling those feelings come up, going, "Oh God, I'm not feeling, this isn't good. Okay, let's mood alter. Let's get out of this." No, let's sit with it. Because if you're running, you will always be running.
Yes.
If you slow down, you will feel the feelings, but you have to immerse yourself in them. They almost have to take you over, get you to the point where you're crying and sobbing and grieving, and then you're done. It's out of you. Does it still hurt when you think about it? Yeah, but you can think about it now. You're not avoiding it. So I think it's great. And the fact that you had your daughter come back to be with you, and you guys could work out that grief together. Because grieving, I mean, there's a certain amount of grief work you do need to do alone. Yeah. But man, that grief work when with other humans is so powerful and so healing.
Yes. And puppies. We got a puppy too. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there is something. So a lot of people adopted a pet this year. I thought I was done with pets. I was like, okay, got the house to myself, no pets, I'm not cleaning up after anything anymore.
Right.
I've got this dog that like owns me now. and my daughter says, no, we got to get a dog, and it's going to be our therapy dog. And it's, and it's just, and she was right. I was like, oh no, okay. But you can't say no with the situation, like, what we were going through. I was like, okay, I will say yes to the dog. And the next thing, the dog's taken over the house, but in a beautiful way. And it's really healing. So maybe if you're out there and alone, there's many programs now where maybe you don't want a full-time dog, but you can actually help foster a pet. Because there's some people are letting pets go as well. So there's fostering a pet, or, check with your humane societies and see if there's a pet available, because even that, if you're alone, like you need something to physically hug.
Yeah. I mean, how great is it to love without fear of abandonment?
Yes.
Like your dog's never going to leave. You can love and be yourself and have no walls and not guarded. That free flowing of love and energy, it's so important. So if you need to do it with a pet, where you could just pet it, play with it, and it's always there for you and you're there for them, it's such an amazing feeling. It is so healing.
Yes. So that's really helpful and important. Of course, don't buy a gift like a pet for somebody. Make sure they want pet first, because that's happened, and then the people turn the pets in to the humane society, and that's another big thing that we're really involved with, fostering and rescuing pets. So it's
a commitment, and you really need to put it into a home where you can have the time and the care and the love and the effort that it deserves.
Definitely. And it will give you, there's studies that show that if you have a dog or a cat, that you live longer. Yeah. And I thought about it, and I thought, okay, well, this is because the dog makes me get up and take walks. It has literally got, like, the dog knows the minute I'm going to sit down, it's like, nope, you cannot sit on that. I can't even get to the sofa. And it's like, I got to go. I want to take a walk. I want to go play. I'm going to get disruptive if you don't play with me. And so it's like my personal trainer now. It's like forcing me to take long walks and get outside in the sunshine. I think that's what it is.
Absolutely. You get a little more exercise, you get motivated, you do more, and you get to access a part of your heart and soul that it's readily available at any moment. Your pet's there. You can just play with it, pet it, it'll sit on your lap. There's just, you sit in a place that we don't really sit in most of the time if we don't have pets. And I find that is very healing, being able to go to that empathetic, compassionate, loving place within yourself and exercise that muscle in a way where you're not fearing rejection or anything else. It's just, you're completely open. And I think emotionally that is very healing.
Now, I was wondering, what books do you recommend or have you been reading and studying this year? I know that one of the most important things is connecting to people that are really positive. And sometimes through books, podcasts, different ways, we can connect and learn even when we're stuck at home, and maybe even more this year than ever.
It's tough because I don't know where people are in their process. So when I started at the beginning, I was reading like Louise Hay and Scott Peck, and then it was Eckhart Tolle and Teal Swan. So as I've gone on, I've gone to deeper and deeper writers. So if somebody's dealing with emotional incest, it would be this book. If it's anxiety, it's that book. If it's trauma, it's this book. It's a lot of experimentation for the person. Like I would just throw out a lot of suggestions and say, go look at these people and find the one that speaks to you. Because I have people that suggest books to me all the time, 10 pages in. I know it's not for me. It's not that it's a bad book. It's just, this wasn't my experience. And trauma and abuse is so personal in a healing process that you need to find somebody that speaks your language. I mean, a lot of people don't speak my language, and that's why I was talking about with the coaching before. Sometimes it's not a right fit. They're not ready, or I'm doing a different approach than they're used to. So it's really difficult to kind of recommend. I do like The Completion Process by Teal Swan. The Four Agreements was good. So that's a little bit on the lighter side. So it depends where you are, because when you first start the recovery, you're not at a deep place. You're peeling away top layers. So you can read the AA Big Book. If your first layer is unpeeling the addiction, you go there. I would never send you, someplace else if that's where you had to go. It's really hard. I have to get a better feel for the person before I would really recommend anything specific.
Right. Yes. That's so true. And I know that for us, reading is really important. We also do a lot of, my family and I, we do a lot of audiobooks. And we have this process where we'll do a bunch of audiobooks and we'll listen to them fast. And you're able to listen to them really fast because your brain can record and listen to it faster than you could read it, believe it or not. And then if it's really interesting and it's like, oh, this is something I need to go deeper into, then we'll buy the physical book and we'll like literally highlight things and maybe start a reading club with a certain book or whatever and go through that process and have fun with it that way. And I mean, we're readers, so that's the thing. And we learned about the Audible. And so now I actually put my book on Audible and it sells 2 to 1 over the physical book. So it's interesting. So people do like to listen and it saves time that way. A lot of times I'll be doing other chores around the house or things I need to do, taking care of that puppy for one. And I have something on that's educating my mind and that's keeping me distracted from problems. So that's the other good thing with it's like you're fueling your body with healthy food and you fuel your mind with healthy information. And
the The audiobooks are incredible. Even walking, like I'll listen to podcasts or audiobooks. That would have just been dead time for me to squirrel around in my head for an hour or two. You're absorbing information, and it even, those times you check out where you're like, wait, I haven't been listening for about 6 minutes. Your brain's still hearing it. It's still getting in there. It's still absorbing. It's still processing. And I like to, before bed, I'll turn an audiobook on, or a podcast, or a meditation tape, and it'll usually play, however long, if it's 6 hours or whatever. So it's still soaking in as I'm going along. But I do find my buddy wrote a book, and his audiobook is doing way better than the print version, because it's just so much easier and so much more convenient. We're in a fast-paced world. Even with COVID, everybody's got the short attention span with the phones. So the reading has definitely taken a back seat to listening.
Yes. And I would like to ask you now, so you have your reading time. Do you do a meditation at all, or do you have a meditation process?
I do. In the summer, it's outdoors in the park. I'll go in nature. I'll find a nice quiet place. In the winter, I got to be honest with you, when I'm in the house, I tend to do it less. So I try to make some time early evening when I'm not good in the morning. Like, I'm just not. So like I got to get my day started. I got to get moving, or the anxiety's kicking in. So after dinner, before I kind of settle in on the couch, I will grab an hour. But I think mostly lately it's been right before bed. I just kind of throw the phone away for a little bit, and I get quiet within myself. I see what surfaces, and then, I'll write about it, or just kind of process it the next couple of days, depending on how much and how painful it is of what I discover at that moment. But definitely more of a nature meditation guy, outdoors, the birds, just the air, it relaxes me.
Yes. And we are a direct reflection of our peer group. Did you find that as you changed your life and got back from a rock bottom back into your new life, did you change your peer group? How did that?
I don't know if I changed them or they changed me. It was, I lived a pretty hard life as far as partying and that kind of stuff. And then I was clean for a long time. And then I had a lot go on. And, I blew 17 years of sobriety, and I went back out hard. And I slowly started to wean off. But then it got to a point where it was like, this isn't a life that I want. And when I go out with those people, they're still the 18, 27-year-old emotionally doing the same thing. And I find myself completely bored. So I don't make appearances often. And I think they're happy about it too, because I look kind of miserable when I'm there. I love my old friends, and we have decades of history. We're just in different places. At this point, to be honest with you, I have my 2 kids and maybe 1 or 2 people that I'm close with and I confide in. Right. And I would rather belong to myself than fit in where I don't belong. Yes. And the loneliness was really hard. I'm a complete codependent. I need the mirroring of other people. So weaning off of that addiction was really hard, and had to sit with that. I don't think there's any other way I could do it. When I first went to AA and I had my 17 years, I moved far away from where I lived, and I didn't have contact with those people for almost a decade until I felt strong enough to be around them. So part of the process is you're going to be alone, and things are going to change. But the good news about that is the people that you do connect with, you can be open and honest and vulnerable with, and they have your back in a real, genuine way. As opposed to, he's suiting my needs because I don't want to be alone and I don't want to go out. I need a wingman, whatever the case may be. So everything has changed. And I find that I don't think I really like humans that much, because there's only very few that I choose to spend time with. But it's really good time that I'm spending, even though it's not often.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that is something very true for myself as well. I have an incredible group of friends and a peer group that's just amazing from around the world. did a lot of travels with Tony Robbins group and platinum and everything. And so I had a blast. And it's when you're aligned and you find people that are aligned with your core values and vision and your life purpose, it's so different. They will hold you accountable and call you on your stuff, but they will also be there to give you a hand up when you need it and it's appropriate. But they'll make sure that you are at 100% and being your best personal self, or they'll let you know. And so it's really different. And if you're listening in and you are you're getting out of an addiction or trying to make a life change, that's going to be a tough thing. So finding a group, finding ways to connect with really healthy people is going to make a huge difference. I have a free Facebook group that people can connect to, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. And there's lots of other groups out there to connect with that are personal development, self-help, that are free, and that you can connect with people that are also working on themselves and going to the next level in their life. And that doesn't mean that we're leaving our friends forever like you, Joe. You went back when you're ready. And a lot of times I have found that we have to leave for a time, but that's because later we will lead and help those other people. They'll be like, hey, I want what you have. I want to get sober too. Or I want to get my act together now. I want to like rebuild my life now. And how did you do it? And so it's going to make a shift.
You start modeling for other people just by being who you are and not following the pack and not trying to fit in. And, you know, I mean, the shaming that guys do on each other when, you know, you're not following the Neanderthal way of living, you know, it's hard to push back against that. But you're right. Having a support group. So it's kind of like weaning off of one as you're incorporating into something new. So if you start to find a good support group and a good group of people and you build a solid foundation, you'll start to wean off of the old life you have. You'll build your strength in the support group, and then you can go back as you with boundaries and confidence and capability within yourself. If for me, I had to completely leave because I wasn't strong enough. I was not strong enough to put up with the shaming and the humiliation and, you know, just all of that pressure to be, you know, the drunk, the happy, you know, party guy. Like I had no interest in doing that at all, but that's how they know me. That's how they loved me. That was our connection. That's not me anymore. So we're going to either have to find a way to connect on some other level, or I will just kind of watch from afar.
Yes. And I mean, I grew up, I had a very interesting youth and grew up homeless, 10 to 13 and a half, sleeping on the benches at the Troubadour in Hollywood and all, you know, I knew everybody. I knew a lot of famous people, but, you know, because I had to know people, I had to have a place to sleep and I, you know, all this, and it taught me a lot. But that was one thing that I really never got into a lot because I had to have control over what I was doing mentally. So I really couldn't do a lot of drinking or drugs because I had to like feed myself and get clothes on my back, and I still went to school, all these crazy things. And so it was kind of a gift in that sense that I could see the other people that maybe they had a home life and they didn't have the responsibility of caring for themselves, but so they could just, you know, do as extreme as they wanted to. And I could see the path they were going down. And I said, wow, I don't want to go down that path to that extreme because sometimes you never come back.
No.
And so, yeah.
And look at how far you've come from sleeping on benches, homeless, to having a family and a home and wrote a book and all the good work that you're doing. I mean, that is a success story right there. You could have went the other way easily. And thank God, right?
Right. And I think it's a choice, and it's a really hard choice sometimes because there is so much pressure when you're young, especially. So parents listening in, if you have to give your kids an opportunity transfer to a different school because it's that bad, you need to do that. whatever it takes. If you need to move, it doesn't matter. Whatever you need to do, it's going to cost you less money, and it is going to be far better for your young adult or child to get help now than to wait.
There's nothing worse than watching somebody go down from addiction and knowing that there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. It has to run its course, and either they're going to continue down that hole, or maybe one day that light bulb goes on and says, that's it. I've had enough of this, living this way. I need to make a change. It is the most powerless thing I've ever experienced, is watching just friends drink themselves to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And incredible. A lot of people can hide that, the drinking problem very well. I know some very, very successful functional alcoholics friends that are, they have so many DUIs, they can't drive anymore and have lost their licenses in other fields because of this alcoholism before they finally got help. And they had to be willing to get help because they were able to function. They weren't seeking the help.
Some people have to hit a real hard bottom before they wake up. I mean, I hope I've hit my last bottom, but I hit one and I was like, it was a wake up call, but it wasn't enough. I had to hit 3 more bottoms before I finally got it. So, as hard as it is, I mean, if a couple of DWIs don't do it, I don't know what's gonna do it,
Right.
But everybody's path is different. Everybody's pain is different, and their tolerance level and the bottoms are different. You just hope that one day they get it and it clicks and they change the direction.
Yes. So it is really, there's so much pressure, also with friends like that are functioning, bless them. But so it is best to remove yourself from those temptations. And that's whether you're like, okay, maybe you're just going on a New Year's diet. You're not going to want to go out with the friends that are going to go to the fast food if you're able to go out to the state, or and go, or they're going to bring you a cake and a whole bunch to drink. And that's probably not going to work out very well for your New Year's resolution plan to get rid of the COVID-20. It's not going to happen.
No, it's so important to know who you are and what you want out of life. It's so easy to go with the crowd. Everybody's going to the diner and you're eating cheeseburgers and fries with gravy and cheese at 2:00 in the morning. Or do I just go home and go to bed? I would always choose the diner because I didn't want to be alone and I didn't want the party to end. And as you get to know yourself and know what's important, you start to make better choices, and what the rest of the people around you think starts to matter less. So the more you care about what you think of you, as opposed to what the others around you think to you, your life will change drastically when you make that change.
And you'll have some peace. Because really, when you think about this life, and this year we've lost a lot of people, whether it's COVID or different situations, and it kind of is a wake-up call to what really matters most. And you say, wait a minute, in the long run, is pleasing my friends that maybe aren't aligned, are they really even your friends? This year you may have found out they're not even your friends unless you're drinking or unless you're eating cake or whatever it is, and so you're like, wait a minute, these aren't even aligned friends. And so maybe this is a good year to find people that are aligned. And when you're really solid on who you are, who you're being and all you're doing, what your values are, and you're in self-love, that's a really important part of it, is the self-love and honoring your needs over everybody else's when it comes to these things, being able to set those boundaries and say no. So it's a big yes to yourself. Then you start attracting those healthy peers and friends that are going to be your lifelong real friends.
Right. The ones that honor your decisions. I don't want to go to the bar tonight. I don't want to go see this band tonight. I don't want to go skiing this weekend. Oh, come on. What do you mean? You always, no. My real friends would be like, what's going on? You all right? instead of trying to shame me to get in a car to drive 3 hours to put 2 sticks on my feet. Like, I just don't want to do it. It's not more complicated than that. But so those are the people you're going to start gravitating to more, who give you space to be you, who honor the boundaries that you set instead of trying to shame you into doing what they want so that they get what they want out of you.
And I mean, it goes to the COVID universal pause, whatever you believe, whatever I have friends that believe all kinds of different things. I mean, we're talking lizard people to, we some very interesting things, all kinds of conspiracies and this and that, and vaccines, no vaccines, this and that. And I'm honoring them where they're at, but I'm really solid where I'm at. And I'm not going to debate it. It's not about that. It's not about, who's right and wrong. It's about really being able to honor your friends and say, okay, that's where you're at. And sometimes they'll send messages. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. They're sending me all these messages, save yourself from the lizard people or whatever it is. And whatever the conspiracy is. And I thought, okay, where is that really coming from? They actually believe whatever that is. Wear the mask, don't wear the mask, whatever it is. And they believe it's so much like a loving parent, like a best friend, that they're like, hey, I want you to be okay. I want you to be safe. This is what I believe. Get your life jacket on for this.
Right.
And where is that coming from? That comes from love. Even though it's like, well, they're kind of off the rocker. That's not what I believe. That's okay. As long as you remember where it's coming from.
I value people's opinions.
Yes.
I don't value when you try to make my opinion your opinion.
Yes, that's
if you believe in the mask, if you don't believe in the mask, I know what I believe. I'm going to do what I do. I'm not going to criticize and shame you and make you believe what I believe. I don't have that kind of energy. How much time do you have in a day to start to convince the rest of the world to believe what you believe? Why can't we just be? Let people be themselves and let them figure it out. Because I think people are so angry. They're taking stances and they're pushing their anger out there because they don't know how to deal with their own anger. Mm-hmm. So they're just finding somebody that doesn't align with them and they're going to town on them violently. I mean, deal with your own anger. Don't put it on me. Don't use me as an outlet to get your negative feelings out of you. Just let me do my thing. I'm respectful. Exactly. I do the right thing. But if for me, if my right thing for you is wrong, then you're just going to have to deal with that. And I'm going to have to deal with it the other way. If I don't agree with you, I will quietly deal with it.
Right. Yes. And I know Dr. Wayne had this saying, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he had a saying, if you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice. So right now we're all being squeezed, and what comes out of people is what's inside. And if they haven't done the work and dealt with the trauma, they're going to come out with, this is a crazy situation. And now they got anger and they're forcing whatever they believe on everyone in an angry way or whatever it is. And so that's where doing this kind of work is really going to help with that healing.
We are responsible for our own emotions. If I'm in a relationship and she just ghosts and goes away, me being angry at her just keeps me a victim.
Yes.
Me processing my hurt and where the abandonment issues that I have are and healing myself, that's where I need to be looking. I shouldn't be pointing a finger at somebody else. I mean, it wasn't a nice thing to do, but the more I put the focus on what she did versus on how I reacted, I will stay a victim my entire life until I take care of my own emotions.
Exactly. And I know that for me, I also got divorced. It was a very healthy thing to do. We were in an arranged marriage that wasn't right. We were just not aligned. Let's just put it that way. Never worked. He never worked. I did all the work, and it just wasn't right. And it wasn't angry or anything. It just wasn't a right thing. But I had so many people come up to me. Okay, now you got to get married. You got to find somebody. And I'm like, wait. To be happy, you never be happy unless you find. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's a job, a relationship, a friendship, whatever it is, if you're not happy yourself, if you can't find happiness within yourself and you're going to go try to find some other human being to fulfill that happiness, that is never going to work out.
Nope.
Never, ever. I'm sorry. You got to figure that out for yourself first, and then you're happy and you attract more happy people and you can have happiness together. That's awesome. But it's not coming from another person, place, or thing.
Right. I mean, what are we taught? You go to school, you go to college, you get a career, you meet somebody, you get married, you have kids, you retire to Florida wearing sandals and black socks in July. You know, we're never taught to take care of our happiness, to follow your dream. It is all about money, feeding the system, getting ahead, crushing your competition, having bigger houses, better cars. There is no happiness in that. If you are not happy inside, nothing outside of you is going to make you happy, but we are taught that this is the way it is, that another human is going to give us something. I'm happy alone right now. Right. Leave me alone. I don't need to be set up. Like, yep. I'm perfectly capable of walking across a room and introducing myself. Right. I mean, I suck at it, but I could do it. But people who don't like to be alone or can't be alone, see, it's a mirror, right? So if I'm happy alone, or if I appear unhappy alone, they can't see me alone either way because they can't be alone. So I'm reflecting something back to them that they don't want to see. So it's like, let's get him hooked up with somebody. Right. So now we can go out as couples and I don't have to look at how happy he is by myself. And I'm either miserable alone or with somebody, but he's happy either way.
Yeah.
So get him in a bad relationship, get him back to being codependent, and get him back to hating himself so I could feel better about myself.
Right. And they could go do whatever they want to do, but it is an individual thing. And I really feel that that's true. When you're able to find that, when you're happy either way, and you're able to find happiness, whether you have a mansion or a shack, it doesn't, when I lost my house, I found happiness. I was in a little 400 square foot prefab mobile home that I had made into vacation rentals. And I was in the little, like, where you store the towels. That's where I was staying. And you know what? I was able to find happiness, and I got out of there really quick, obviously, but I was able to find peace and happiness. And I said, oh, wow, I still own that.
It's all perspective. You can look at it from a victim role, or you can start to empower yourself. We're just not taught to empower ourselves. We're not taught to be independent. We're taught to be codependent. We're taught that happiness is outside of ourselves. Just getting out of the victim role, stop blaming and start empowering. That's the shift. It's so hard. It's so difficult. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody teaches it. And it goes against everything that we were raised to be. So when you start doing it the other way, people are going to judge and shame you. And if you're not strong enough to handle it, and that's what you were saying before about getting away from your older crowd and finding a new place of support, you need people who have walked the, see, we all have the ability to heal ourselves. The only difference between somebody somebody just started sooner. That's all. Or somebody's working a little bit harder. We're all on the same path. We want to get there. We just have no direction. So find the people that speak to you. Find the people that are living a life that's attractive to you, and talk to them and confide in them. Try to build some trust and be able to communicate on a level that isn't about, what's on Netflix tonight. You know what I mean?
Yes. Such a good conversation, Joe. And we are coming to the end of the hour. So I'd love for you to share how people can connect with you, to work with you, and do some of this work. Yes, that'd be great.
Mostly everything's at my website, joeryan.com. I'm on Instagram probably more than anything, at Joe Ryan. And the name of the podcast is It's Not You, It's Your Trauma. It's on Apple and Spotify and everywhere. But if you go to joeryan.com/links, it has all my social, all the ways to contact me. And you can find all the information there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. All right. Stay tuned, and we will be back after these messages. And now I have some homework for you. I would love for you to grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, The formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.sheilamac.com.